A Plague Tale: Innocence offers a dark, bleak portrayal of 1348 France during one of the most devastating pandemics in human history, the Black Death. It's a story-focused, stealth action-adventure game that I absolutely adored my time with, and whilst it's not perfect, in many ways it represents just how fantastic AA games have become. The game follows the story of two orphan siblings, Amicia and her younger brother Hugo Darun. After a dramatic opening first hour, the pair are left alone in the world to survive, hunted by the intimidating Inquisition soldiers. Hugo possesses a mysterious disease, something which has caused Amicia and Hugo to rarely interact throughout their short lives so far, and as a result, the player is able to share the journey the two go on from not only a literal perspective, but an emotional one too. Whilst playing A Plague Tale, we are directly able to witness the sibling bond between the two evolving over time. You take control of Amicia directly throughout the game, whilst Hugo holds your hand. I know what you're thinking, a small child in a dangerous world, what could possibly go wrong? I'll stop you right there though. A Plague Tale: Innocence actually avoids the obvious common trope of weak characters being used as a glaringly obvious plot point for constant bad situations to occur. Instead, Hugo actually offers an extension to Amicia's abilities. With the press of a button, he can be sent to perform various actions, such as crawling through small gaps or utilising distant levers, etc. Not only that, but throughout the game, Hugo provides a poetic contrast to the bleak events and outlook of the world surrounding him. He is an emotional anchor, highlighting a wonderfully naive and innocent perspective on what's occurring. From a gameplay perspective, A Plague Tale: Innocence feels solid, albeit fairly kind of safe throughout. Navigating the rather linear environments, you're able to hide amongst tall grass and shift enemy NPCs' attention in an attempt to avoid conflict. Amicia's only weapon is her trusty sling. The sling itself can fire basic stones at environmental objects to startle an enemy, or any of the numerous elements which you unlock as you progress through the game to interact with the game's environments, such as lighting or putting out lanterns, burning helmets off tougher enemies, and even attracting rats. Oh, did I forget to mention that this game contains a hell of a lot of rats. A Plague Tale is able to showcase literally thousands of rats on screen at once. It is a disgustingly impressive feat to behold. These swarms are utilised throughout the vast array of puzzles and situations in the game. Amicia quickly discovers the rats' distaste towards fire and light in general. Across the game's journey, you'll end up using various torches and lights to weave your way through tens of thousands of rats. Pulling levers, reaching higher areas and lighting your way through paths, or solving plenty of fairly straightforward yet still enjoyable puzzles. Whilst death is an almost instant affair, thankfully the game actually has super quick reloading times to retry upon failure, which I really appreciated. Initially, I actually felt like the perfect summary for the game would be to compare it to Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons with the production values of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. That was until about halfway through the game, where things take a fairly significant turn from not only a gameplay perspective, but a narrative one too. The first time Amicia has to kill someone is an impactful experience. She has no choice. It's not like she was a born killing machine like many protagonists are in game these days. Hugo even questions her, "Why did you do that, Amicia?" he innocently pronounces, to which she explains that she had to protect him. And it's moments like this where the game is at its absolute finest. The game spends a huge chunk of time giving death the respect that it rightfully deserves. Disappointingly, in the second half, that approach somewhat falters a little. Now, whether that's narratively supposed to represent Amicia becoming more familiar with the terrible actions that she's forced into repeatedly, or simply because somewhere down the line A Plague Tale becomes more of a video game, it's hard to say. What the developer's intention here was, I'm not so sure, but I did find it to be a little unfortunate given the numerous moments of severity given to death in a game so aptly set during a time period which is filled with it. Thankfully, I did feel the game's final few hours altered my feelings on this approach somewhat. Unfortunately, I can't really talk about it in more detail because I really don't want to spoil what happens here. That said, there are areas of the game which are more consistently fantastic from beginning to end. The game's environments are absolutely beautiful, whether it's escaping from crazed civilians through beautifully rendered claustrophobic village streets to stunning vistas or dark abandoned towns. A Plague Tale Innocence looks incredible, not just from a technical perspective, but really an artistic one too. This is a game which absolutely nails atmosphere. The art team at developer Asobo Studios should be seriously proud of their work here. The game's environments do a near perfect job of representing such a naturally beautiful region in a depressingly bleak time period. Frustratingly, the lip sync throughout the experience is genuinely quite bad. It's something that I felt was a real shame given the rest of the game's technical achievements.
Shh. You are to stay here with your brother.
The game actually ends up looking better in motion when you're playing it than it does during those story-focused cutscenes. I ended up feeling somewhat disconnected during these moments, and it was a real immersion breaker. Thankfully, during gameplay that's undeniably not the case, but it felt like a stark contrast nonetheless. The game's voice acting was also somewhat of a mixed bag, featuring plenty of thick French accents.
No, I cannot leave the church.
Amicia and Hugo are generally solid, but some of the other characters are a little disappointing. The game's soundtrack, however, is staggeringly superb. Composed by Olivier Derivière, I've probably completely messed that up. The music here is some of the finest I've experienced in a video game in years. It genuinely elevates the entire experience with plenty of powerfully mellow sounding cello moments and the thick, weighty sounds of other string instruments. Whilst this isn't necessarily a soundtrack that I'd personally listen to in my free time, it is just downright simply perfect pairing with the game. Honestly, this might be the star of the show here for me. Actually, the audio design in general is fairly strong, with Amicia's fearful, heavy breathing as an enemy gets close, or simply the way the game's music intertwines and merges smoothly with the gameplay. Speech from afar sounds accurately distant, and the chattering swarms of nearby rats as they surround you provide an undeniable sense of anxiety. There's clearly been a fair amount of care taken in this area of the game. The game also features a fairly basic upgrade system, allowing you to improve various elements of Amicia's armoury, such as being able to hold more gathered resources, silence your swing throws, or increase your storage of ammunition. As you find items throughout the game world, these can be used to craft further upgrades. However, this all felt a little overly gamey to me, given the rest of the game. The upgrades are never actually necessary, with the items needed to craft specific ammunition for a puzzle, for example, always provided right next to the puzzle itself. I could have easily gone from the beginning of the end to the game without ever even touching the upgrade screen, and I doubt I'd have even noticed. Whilst it's fine overall, I just felt its existence didn't really add anything to the experience. I came in with a non-existent expectation of A Plague Tale, but after around 12 hours and 16 chapters later, I left feeling truly impressed with what the team managed to create here. Whilst I did have some issues with where both the gameplay and narrative went in the latter half of the game, my overall feelings towards the title is largely a positive one. This is a game that deserves far more attention than it is seemingly getting in the build-up to its launch. Plague Tale Innocence isn't without its problems though. There's numerous areas which could be improved. In fact, it's actually worth pointing out that I encountered a fair amount of nasty screen tearing playing the game on Xbox One X, which may or may not resolved by the time this video goes live. That said, I look upon my overall time with the game extremely fondly. The strong pacing, superb atmosphere, solid gameplay loop, and gripping narrative kept me interested from beginning to end. I genuinely can't wait to see what this studio does next. It's a purely single player experience, there's zero microtransactions or shady business practices, and it is also a game that is oozing with passion, clearly created by a development studio teeming with some serious talent. Lately, publisher Focus Home Interactive have been providing some lesser known studios with the resources and opportunity to showcase exactly what they can do, and I feel that should be applauded. Whilst the game is priced at a slightly lower than normal recommended retail price, the experience is a notably linear one with limited replay value, and that's fine. I rapidly played through the game in just over 2 days, not because I had to. Actually, the game's publisher sent this one over fairly early, which is very nice, thank you, but because I wanted to. I was gripped. I wanted to see where Amicia and Hugo's journey would lead next. Is A Plague Tale worth buying? Absolutely. Most importantly though, you can pet the dog in this game.